Hello and welcome to Rauta's Death Metal Reviews. This time we go to beautiful Greece with our band called Ascending Olympus. Very fitting name for a band coming from Greece after all. This is a beautiful looking digipack released through Drakkar Productions, and the style is modern death metal. The name of the album, Frontlines, of course, refers to war, which is not that obvious with the given cover. I mean, it's beautiful, they're beautiful colors, and I like the design, but if you're expecting some kind of a tanks or other kind of Panzerwagens to roll onto you because of, well, Boltover and whatnot, well, color me surprised. Anyhow, this is how it looks. Like I said, beautiful glossy digipack, and the style is somewhat of modernized death metal. This is the band's debut album, has been out for a little bit of time, but this is a priority release here on the channel, so hence it's taking the step before others. And there's some interesting news. Whatever you see here with the given booklet about lineup and whatsoever has changed very recently. Mind you, I'm doing this video in the mid-November 2024, so some information might not or probably is already updated on Metal Archive site and respective sites about this. Actually, I had a little bit of correspondence with the given band about the lineup changes because things have changed this album. And some people have gone, some people have entered the game, and so forth. But what you need to know as a possible buyer, a possible future fan, that this is how the digipack will look like. And if you're interested to go buy it, well, now you know a little bit more. But let's dive into the world of Ascending Olympus, which will have later on their profile picture updated, thanks to the band and all, and talk about this a debut album from 2023. It has been out there for more than a year now, and features very basic setup in terms of 10 songs, a little bit more than 40 minutes. I mean, after all, that's where most albums in metal, especially extreme metal, operate. You know, more than 35, less than 50, and then you have something like 8 to 10 tracks, which is very good, obviously, because nobody wants to listen to this kind of music when songs would go like, say, 10 minutes and all. So this is focusing on keeping it around 4 minutes mark, and then obviously dealing with the riffs, the songwriting parts, etc., composition in general, in a way that it's like straight to the point, not exactly the grindy fashion, like keeping super short or, how to say, short and sweet and in and out. Like you're not expecting the kind of a napalm that you suffer within 2 seconds in and out. But then again, not overextending the stay, but more like keeping it well balanced in terms of, how the songwriting is and what you're expecting from this kind of music to begin with. Now, when I say modern death metal, that can really mean a various amount of things. So whatever angle you're coming from, you might expect a little bit different and all that stuff. So I guess I kind of need to explain what's happening here. First of all, forget all kind of brutality when we're talking about this kind of a modern death metal. Obviously, death metal, by very definition, is somewhat heavy always, and you can expect growl vocals and all that stuff. That is very much happening here as well. But when talking about a little bit more modern take, this doesn't mean that this is going progressive or avant-garde-ish or one of the nowadays things, getting borderline with some kind of core elements, or then again getting overly technical with the stuff. It's not tech death, it's just kind of a old school death metal updated to year 2023. Meaning it definitely sounds, with the given production and all, something that could really happen in 2020s rather than, say, 1990s or even early 2000s. In terms of songwriting, the certain amount of melodies seeping in, taking their place and, creating a little bit more maybe atmospheric take than, say, old school death metal revival take is what sets this separate from the rather classic take of death metal. And of course, nowadays, when we hear a lot about old school death metal, some bands are just outright retro, meaning that even if they are 2020 death metal ones, they still kind of manage to sound like, hey, this is an album that could have come out in 1993, copycatting after, bands like Cannibal Corpse or whatever. But this is not the case with Ascending Olympus. Like I said, when I'm talking about modern death metal, it really kind of sounds of something that you might hear today. Death metal, surely, kind of a true to the given genre and all that stuff, but there's nothing retro-ish about it. And this is a very neutral way to say it because I, as much as I have a, soft spot for old school death metal, be it about Morbid Angels or Ball Throwers, D-Sides, Deaths, whatever, I also happen to like a lot of modern nowadays death metal. Why? First of all, the production is so much more solid these days, and this applies very, very well with this given album and band as well. Like I said, there's nothing that reeks like, unnecessary in terms of production. But those who are expecting some kind of old school stuff might be, it's not my cup of tea. In terms how these songs play out, it's really kind of a straightforward. Like I said, the songs are kept around 4 minutes marker, which means that you don't really get stuck with them. Meaning they roll out nicely, there's a nice flow and all that stuff. There are no moments where you're like, what the hell is happening here? Everything has its place. Now the downside is, this is not the most memorable album in terms of individual riffs, melodies, or just, the songs. Meaning it's kind of a consistent all the way through, but there are no clear high points, the kind of a peaks where you're like, I really love this riff or that. And now if you're like wondering what the hell that does even mean, listen to a lot of old school death metal ones and you will figure out certain parts. So there are moments when you just can repeat whatever D-Side was singing back in the days, or Morbid Angels going with, things like the debut album and all that stuff. Or I could list on a lot of bands, the kind of hit songs. Even if it's not so evident in death metal, yeah, we do tend to have them. And that's why certain albums, certain bands are kept like high there up in the, praised ones rather than the big mass. And unfortunately, Ascending Olympus, while not being mediocre and totally lukewarm, is not really that great with this album. Don't get me wrong, that doesn't really mean anything negative here. I'm just pointing out that what this album would need, in my opinion, just feel free to disagree and all, is some kind of a more memorable parts. And as being part of the bands myself, I know it's not really that easy to come by with such great ideas. But that's, in my opinion, the basically only downside. What I can really say about this album is it could really be more memorable. It could have more of those catchy moments. So this puts this a little bit more on the background stuff as an album. Then again, it's a kind of a typical debut album. You put a lot of passion, a lot of time, a lot of effort there, and you don't necessarily see those so-called weak points or what the album is missing. That's kind of a usual step, especially when you don't have this kind of extensive list of demos, right? Where you make the early mistakes and then they correct them, pick up the best parts and make the album right. So this is what is happening here. Frontlines is including those moments which could have been gotten rid of with the demo and all. So maybe that's something that they didn't think when they were making this album. It doesn't mean this, like said, bad or even mediocre. This is way better than that. But if something could have been better, it's those moments where you just get a lot of bulk riffs. It's fine. But when you don't have the peak moments, everything kind of becomes very, very plain and, even to a certain degree, forgettable. That being said, if you are into something like a decent death metal with a modern touch, a little bit melodies and a little bit of maybe atmospheric parts, this is worth checking out. Don't make the mistake and consider that if it's not 5 out of 5, I'm gonna skip it. Because there are plenty of albums like this which are really, really easy to get into and listen to, and you don't get to complain about them, but they are not that memorable. Now, links are provided in the description box. So check out the music because it's already been out there for a while, and if you like it, well, things like this is very good to put into your record collection if you value nice looking products to begin with. Now, as much as I can tell you, this is all the information I have regarding the different platforms. So digital or CD. Maybe someday, I hope there will be an LP because cover art like this totally deserves it. And what I can tell you is that as much as I know, there are some changes happening, so keep your eyes and ears peeled for this given album and given band for the future to happen. Greek death metal. There's not too much of that, so off you go, check it out, and I hope you enjoy it. Take care.